Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to the Development Control and Regulatory Board on the 12th of April 2018. And I've lost my piece. So disorganised today. Might I remind everyone present that this meeting will be broadcast live via the County Council website, and will also be available for viewing on the County Council's website after this meeting. Ewan has now instructed me to say who is substituting at this meeting and who will be substituting for. Mrs. Posnett is attending this meeting instead of Mrs. Richardson, and Mr. Dean Gamble is substituting for Mrs. Broadley today. Okay. Moving on then to the agenda item. First item number 1 is minutes of the meeting held on the 8th of March 2018. Is there a seconder? Agreed. Seconded, done. Item number 2, question time. We have received no questions. Item 3, questions asked by members. We have none of those either. Item 4, to advise of any other items the chairman decided to take. We haven't any of those. Item 5, declarations of interest. Might I say that it is noted that all members who are also members of parish, town, district councils or liaison committees will have a personal interest in those applications which relate to areas covered by those authorities. Are there any other? No. I'd like to just say that the item number 10 and 11, which is WAVIN application, I did visit this company in capacity as leader of Ashford-Ella-Zouch Town Council on an official visit with the Mayor of Ashford-Ella-Zouch Town Council and the clerk there. I did not discuss any items that are on this agenda today, so therefore I think I'm quite okay to carry on in this meeting with this without any problem. Okay. Item number 6, presentation to petitions. With no petitions. Item number 7, that's a application to fell a tree at Shepshed, and I'd like to ask Mr. Shaw to do that, please, if you would.
Thank you. This is an application submitted by the agent for William Davis to fell an oak tree located on development land at of Ticko Lane, and the tree is on the boundary of 25 Banbury Drive, Shepshed. So that's number 25, and that's the tree. The reason for the application is that the tree is considered to have poor form and is causing concern to the residents of 23 Banbury Drive, which is here, as they're concerned about root damage to Severn Trent drains, both foul and surface water drains, and also concerned about any subsidence that may possibly occur to their property. The tree was found to be in moderate condition with a life expectancy of 20 years and can be viewed by the public. There was no evidence that the tree is causing damage to Severn Trent sewage and surface water pipes or to the structure of 23 Banbury Drive. The crown of the tree is currently clear of the roof of 23 Banbury Drive, and when in leaf the shade cast by the tree would be modest in the rear gardens of the property. Consequently, as the tree has amenity value in the area and an estimated life expectancy of 20 years, the recommendation is that in this case consent is refused to fell the tree principally on the grounds of amenity. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Shaw. Comments from anyone? David?
Yes, thank you, Chairman. Well, we do obviously occasionally get tree preservation orders up for our consideration, but there is no evidence with this one that it's damaging any property or is in a dangerous condition. And I think it would be sad to lose such a good tree which is an amenity in the area, and I support the officer's recommendation. I'm happy to move it, Chairman.
Seconded by Tony. Anyone else wish to comment? No? Can we show of hands of all in favour of that? Looks to be unanimous, and so there's obviously no one against. Thank you, Mr. Shaw. Thank you. Okay. Moving on then, our next item is item number 8. This is a application from Barden Quarries. Can I ask Lonick to speak to this, please?
Thank you, Chairman. Yes, this is an application to vary a condition for a temporary period to enable some rock stabilisation works at Barden Quarry. So the location of Barden Quarry is as shown on the plan there. Members will be familiar with this very large mineral site. The proposal is essentially a repeat of permission that you granted back in September 2017, again for a temporary period. This is exactly the same application, but the reason why you've got it here today is that the company were unable to start it in the timescales that were set down, and that was due to sort of their own technical assurance reasons to ensure that they're going to do it in the correct manner. So the consequences of this is that you gave them a temporary period, but that temporary period was due to expire, well, has expired on the 1st of February, but they did actually start on the 25th of January. So really what they're asking you to do is to shift that time period from when you did grant it to a new time period starting on the 25th of January, running till June of this year. So the same period. So in terms of the material circumstances, not a lot has changed other than they have actually made some progress, and so we're able to establish some assessment of the actual impact of it happening. So just to recap, so it's in this area here, they're building the slot for the crusher and the ramping area. The key issue is the effect it might have on nearby residents, and the nearest one is this one here at Hobby Hall. But what this shows is a cross-section from the property to the site, and you can see in terms of the levels, this is where they're operating, and you'll see the ground levels rise to 232 AD, whereas down here they're at 168, I think it says there. So there's quite a difference in terms of height and distance in the way that they're wanting to operate and safeguard the operations by doing some stabilisation work during the evening and early morning hours if they need to do that. There's been one representation from this property who is concerned about the impact. In terms of the current permission, or the last time you granted permission, you put safeguards in and conditions to control noise and other amenity issues, and there has been installed a monitor in there, a real-time monitor, which has been monitoring the site, and up until now there haven't been any particular issues occurring from the operations. I say this will be operated between 47 and 75 metres below existing ground level, so it's unlikely to create any particular issues. Hence, that's why you granted permission last time, and recommendation this time is to allow them the same permission, but for a different time period. The only thing that I have to bring to your attention in terms of the correction on the report, Chairman, is on page 23. There's a noise condition number 8, and within that condition it refers to another condition, and it should refer to condition 7, but it actually refers to condition number 8. So in condition 8, any reference to condition number 8 should be a reference to condition number 7, if that makes sense to you, Chairman. Thank you.
Thank you, Lonnick. Dan, you're one of the ward members mentioned, Chairman, so I'll come to you first.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I've had nobody contact me with concerns about this particular item, so that's the first part to open up with. And having been involved when they came last time, really I think it's most appropriate that we do say yes, and I would like to propose the officer's recommendation. Thank you.
Thank you, Dan. Is there a seconder, Mr. Scruggs?
Second, Chairman. Thank you, Chairman. I was going to second it, but somebody else has done it. Can I ask, as I understand it, this work's already started and it's not causing an issue?
That's correct, Chairman. It's already underway.
If there's no further comments, then we'll move to the vote on this item then, please, if all in favour of the recommendation. That looks to be unanimous, so there will be nobody against, I assume. Moving on to item number 9, which is another application from Barden Quarries. And Lonnick, would you speak to this item, please?
Thank you, Chairman. Yes, sticking with Barden Quarry, a bit further along. The issue here is around the boundary of the site, and you will see from this just make sure I get my bearings, Chairman. Yes, from this overhead slide that they are looking to do some blastings in this area where previously they were only going to extract this area of the site by excavation. Now, the reason for that is when they sunk their boreholes assessing the site, they estimated that this area would be only covered with overburden and clay, and therefore it didn't require any blasting, and they would take it out by machinery. But when they come to extract it and remove the overburden, they came across part of the site being rock, and that is unable to be excavated by machine. It has to be blasted. And the reason they're coming to you today is that there are conditions on this existing consent which limits where blasting can and cannot take place. And again, as in the previous one, the nearest property, and get a bit nearer than last time, is Hobby Hall in here. So this is a plan of what the quarry should look like when it reached its final footprint. So at the moment they are developing the quarry, and it's quite early days yet, but they're doing that as evidenced by the previous item. So this is where they want to work, and this is where they want to extend the boundary to. But as you can see, there is within 200 metres of that property, this boundary falls in that area. And the reason why that's important is that, I'm not sure whether you can see it very well on this plan, Chairman, the existing conditions have standoffs of 200 metres from properties where blasting should not take place. And this refers to production blasting. And there's a slight difference, because what we're talking about here is development blasting, i.e. works in order to get the site ready for production. So there are standoffs of 400 metres where no blasting will take place, and there are standoffs between 200 and 400 metres where blasting has to be controlled in a certain way. So as you can see here, the 200-metre standoff, you see a shaded area there where about 40 metres into that 200-metre standoff, there is an area where blasting will need to take place if the shape of the quarry is to fulfil what's been approved. And the reason the company coming forward with this is because of the restrictions of the conditions, but also without it will sterilise a significant amount of reserve. And it's not only this bit that we're talking about, it does go quite deep, but also this will affect the shape in this corner, and therefore access to other mineral would be precluded if this shaping of this area does not take place. So the proposal is to do that over a 2-year period with a limited number of blasts. And you'll see from the report that they set out how many blasts they are programmed to do in order to achieve the benches of this site. So as they move down, they'll move away from this zone, and they get deeper into the quarry. So it's a short-term measure. So asking for a short-term dispensation over a 2-year period, 12 blasts in all, and you'll see from the conditions that we have imposed similar conditions in terms of blasting, in fact slightly more stringent conditions on the blasting levels in order to try to ensure that this area is protected. Again, there is a full-time monitor in there which will monitor vibration and noise levels already, and we're able to check that ourselves as well. Now, the company has been operating here, I say, for a few years now, getting the site ready. Overall, there have been about 170 blasts over 23 months that they've been operating. I think bar one, they've all been in compliance with what's required of them. And I think, Chairman, that is probably all I have to say, unless there's another slide. No, that's it, Chairman. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Lonnie. Dan, come to you again.
Thank you, Chairman. Well, once again, I've had no correspondence, no contact. Nobody's said that they're very unhappy over this. And I think logically, when we look at it, the preclusion of such a huge amount of tonnage material, it would not make sense for us to do any other than to support this. And I would wish to formally move the officer's recommendation, Chairman. Thank you.
Thank you, Dan. Is there a seconder for this? Michael.
I wasn't going to second it, but just a question for Lonette, really. This 200-metre zone, is it a local condition or is it a national sort of condition that's imposed on quarries?
Chairman, it's a local one that we've imposed. In fact, it was offered by the company as a sort of safeguarding zone. I don't think there's any hard and fast rule about how far you are away in terms of protecting people, but it certainly helps that if you've got a standoff zone. Blast vibration and air overpressure is quite a complicated business because obviously it affects ground issues. But obviously the further away from blasting, in theory, it's better.
Mr. Bolter.
Thank you, Chairman. For my information, being a novice at blasting, what's the difference between blasting for rock and blasting to do what they want to do? I mean, is it a lesser charge, or is that the principle behind it?
Yes, you're quite right, Mr. Bolter. The principle is that it's a lesser charge. When you're blasting for production, you need to really blast the rock into fragments that you can then. I know it goes through a crusher, but you want it in a different state than when you're just preparing the face. So in this respect, all you want to do is prepare benches, straight benches down the side. So you prepare a nice, safe boundary.
Safe working environment.
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay, yeah, Michael was a bit... Okay. If there's no further comments, we'll move to the vote on this then, please. All in favour of the recommendation? That looks to be unanimous again, Ewan. Thank you. Item number 10 then is the application by Wavin to import clay onto their land at Blackforby. Lonnick, would you speak to this one, please?
Yes, thank you, Chairman. This is one of two applications which really, although they're separate, maybe ought to bear in mind that we ought to sort of have in mind the two applications, this one and the next one, because they're interlinked, but they're dealing with different planning consents. So this first one is to store clay material at the forest works, the Wavin Forest Works, which is here. This is the factory here. This is roughly where the site they want to store clay stock is. And here at Donington Island, this is where the clay stock currently is. So the permission here currently has controls on how long that stocking is going to be there and how that stock is then comes out of the site. And the two exits, one here, which is associated with the Albion landfill site, which is coming to an end, and there's another access here with a routing agreement that controls traffic coming up to here to the brickworks, and then other clay going elsewhere will go up this way and onto the A42. So currently, clay is used at the brickworks from here as well as from other sources, but so there is traffic coming from here into here already. What the company want to do is really have some assurance about the availability of the clay stocking site. This site is a limited consent site at the moment, and what the company want to do is to make sure that they have sufficient stocks ready available on their land in close to their factory to supply them for the next 25 years. So this is the area that they're looking at in here, the main block here and a little block here, which I'll explain in a moment, and the factory is here, and this is the route that you saw on that plan, and they come in through here and into this site. And to give you sort of an indication of the aerial photography, so this is unimproved agricultural area. It's not designated in any particular way. It is in the countryside. The Albion, you see the edge of the Albion site now, which is currently being restored and finished off. And what they're proposing is to build 5-metre bunds around an area of land like this by scraping off the soil and subsoil of this land, and then bringing in the clay stocks and stocking them here, again, no higher than 5 metres, so they can fit behind these bunds, which will be grass seeded. And then they will then, once they've done that, they're asking for about 12 months in which to do this, bring the stock from Donington Island, put it here, and within 12 months they'll have a 25-year stock, which they will then save them going back to Donington Island. They'll just use this plus other stock that they already bring in for blending purposes. Sorry, Chairman, not very clear, but just to give you a cross-section through that, it's, as I've said, you've got the bunds at 5 metres and the clay stocks within the site at 5 metres, so that they're at grade with the bunds. Now, what this shows here is a view from Booththorpe, and the top picture is as the site looks now, and I think you can just about make out the factory there. And then what they've done is done a photo montage, a computerised representation of what the bund might look like here, and you can see it sort of closes off the view of the factory. And so behind there'll be the clay stocking. This is what they say it might look like. And then the other view, again, sorry, not a brilliant photograph, but this is the view currently into the site, and then you can just about make out sort of some green wedges, which will be the bund, and that's the kind of view that they anticipate you might get if this goes ahead. And what this shows is some additional planting in this very light green blocks around the edge, which has been a request from the National Forest Company because it is within the area. So they are proposing to plant there, which is about 20% of the site area, with woodland planting. And it's something that came through representations. And there's also issues around drainage. Currently, the site isn't drained that well, but they're going to revamp the whole drainage system. And these are this extra bit that you saw on the plan is for lagoon and balancing ponds where drains will be put in, the pipes, it'll go into here, and then it'll go off-site into nearby brooks. So I think that's probably all I've got to say, Chairman. I think the key issue seems to be revolve around the visual impact, which you've seen photographs of there. And I think it seems to me that there is adequate opportunity to screen it, and I think if they do it properly, it will be screened, particularly with the forest planting. You will have seen representations about the issues around dust and noise, particularly from local residents. Again, there's been some very detailed dust assessment and noise assessment done. I'm satisfied that they can be controlled adequately, and you see conditions around that at various points around the area with various levels of noise. And again, there's a dust management plan in place. In terms of traffic, it will be additional traffic, but you see the Highway Authority are saying that's fine, providing there's a limit to that traffic, and the limit is 98 based on what they say they need to do. So there's a condition which we're proposing will cover that. Surface water I've dealt with, and the only outstanding issue that wasn't on the plan and has been raised by representations is there's no plans for restoration, so we've put in a condition that requires them to put in a restoration scheme once they're finished using the site. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Lonnie. Mr. Sheehan is my co-partner in this ward. Anything from Mr. Sheehan? Nothing from any district council representatives? No. Okay. Members? David?
It's a question, Chairman. I'm intrigued to see you have a ski centre there above Albert Village. Yeah. Do you get that much snow? It's a serious ski centre.
It's at Swadlincote, there is, yeah. 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 But that's the only thing we've got in, well, Swadlincote have got as far as ski slopes are concerned, anyway. Michael.
Yeah, generally happy, Chair. Just one concern in paragraph 41 about the great crested newts. The hedgerow's been removed, but the wording just sounds so wishy-washy that they hope there's no damage or killing of newts, and then it goes on to refer on page 65 that the supporting statement has set out how the great crested newts and the habitats, how the risk is minimised, but clearly there is a risk there. I just wonder, has the European Protected Species Development Licence going to be required? I couldn't see it in the conditions.
Thank you, Chairman. Yeah, that is separate legislation. It's outside the planning remit. It's controlled by Natural England. So if there are newts there, which seems to be around the site, not within the site, so if they accidentally tread on a newt and kill it, then obviously they'll be breaking the law. So they're going to have to assess that and get a species licence to control that if they need to, but that is governed and controlled by Natural England.
Mr. Crooks? Oh, was you? Mr. Bolter, then?
Put a note to applicant that about the newts, so they are aware of it. Not a condition, but a note to applicant. They may require a licence.
Chairman, I'm happy to do that. I'm just looking at the notes we've got currently. It's not covered in the notes. You're
No.
quite right. They are aware of it because it was their survey that did it, so they should be. But if you want to put a note in, I'm happy to put a note in
I think it'd be
Yeah.
prudent to put a note in, Chair. Then
for
we
belts and braces. Yeah.
dispense our responsibility. We've told them that it's up to them. Then if they get
Yeah, I think that's a good idea to bring that up, Mr. Bolter. We've got a mover. Pam.
I just noticed that some of the representations that have been received refer to flooding of Shell Brook. And obviously there will be extra surface water coming from this. Are we sure that we've got adequate protection in place so that we're not going to add to that risk?
There are those lagoons there, but probably Lonnie can answer the question better than me.
Yes, thank you, Chairman. We did consult with the Environment Agency and the local lead flood authority, which is ourselves, of course, and they have put information which we have sort of gone back to them a few times just to make sure that they are doing right. But you're quite right. All of this will drain into the Shell Brook, and I think probably the reason why they've put that lagoon in is to try to control that flow and make sure that it doesn't go too fast.
If it's been proposed, I'm happy to second it.
You're going to second it, are you? Yeah. If there's no more, no comments or speakers, all in favour of this? The recommendation, that is. Unanimous again, Ewan. You're having a good day.
Can you spell unanimous? I've had against it.
Item number 11, which also relates to Wabbin, or is their application, and it relates to the previous item. Lonnie, could you just do this one, please?
Yes, thank you, Chairman. So now that you've resolved to approve that one, you're happy for the clay storage. Part of that proposal was to bring clay from Donington Island, but of course they can only do that if you give them dispensation from the current restrictions that are in place at Donington Island. And what that says at the moment, the clay is stocked in this area, and they are time limited, but there are conditions on there and the legal agreement which controls the number of vehicles coming out of Spring Cottage Road and up onto Moira Road. That's limited at the moment to 88, but what they're asking, in order to facilitate their clay stocking area and to be completed within 12 months, they're asking, can they have 120 movements rather than 88 for a 12-month period in order for them to enable to do what you've just allowed them to do, Chairman. Thank you.
Thank you, Lonnie. Anything from Mr. Sheehan? Ewan? No. Comments? Mr. Gamble?
Thank you, Chair. I understand they're going to increase HGV by approximately 50% for a 12-month period. Surely that's going to shorten the condition of the road by time, because obviously you're having a hell of a lot more HGVs on it. Shouldn't the owners be responsible for any damage which is going to come earlier to the road service than would necessarily be?
Please, Lonnie.
Sorry, thank you, Chairman. I don't think those numbers, you're talking about 60 movements extra per day. Seems quite a lot. I think 6,000 loads over 12 months. Given the roads at the moment, they are fairly good roads. They're sort of urban class roads, which I don't think they will be damaged by the amount of traffic on there. And certainly the Highway Authority has not said that's going to be an issue, Chairman.
Okay, thank you. Michael, did you move this?
I did.
You did, I thought you did. Seconded by Tony, yeah. If there's no further comments, we'll take a vote on this then, please, if you may. All in favour of the recommendation. Another one for you, Leo. We're so good to you, you can't right believe it. Have you ever written that, Ewan?
It's the chairman's announcement.
Okay, item number 12. Any other items that the chairman has decided to take as urgent? We haven't any of those. Item 13, chairman's announcements. Can I remind you that there's a site visit at Barrow Hill Quarry which will take place on the 22nd of May, leaving here at 10 a.m. If you would please contact Ewan to let him know whether you're going or not, of course, if that's okay. And finally, this is the last meeting of this cycle of the council anyway, and there'll be a new what will there be a new one of? Ewan?
The membership of the committee.
New membership, that's the word. Yeah, there'll be new membership, I assume. So we'll look and see what that is. Thank you very much for attending. Thank you for your support for the last 12 months.